How we doing, guys? Richie, the Jordan Patrick Show, and happy Championship Sunday. Two big games in each conference deciding who's going to end up in this year's Super Bowl. Going to get on that in just a moment. But we got some NFL news I definitely want to hit on. And we're going to start it off with talking about the great Tom Brady. And there have been some conflicting stories with regard to his future. And I'm going to try to make some clarity on some of this while we still all wait to get an official determination. Yesterday, pretty much all major media outlets announced, whether it be ESPN, Fox Business, NFL Network, that Tom Brady was indeed hanging it up after 22 amazing seasons. A little later, there was a conflicting story saying that Brady may not be retiring at all. I don't really think there's much to see here with regard to that. I believe that Tom Brady is actually waiting until February 4th because in that case, he's able to claim a bonus that he deserves and earned. From the financial standpoint, it would actually be very difficult for Tampa to pay him what he was making these previous two seasons while still keeping the crust of their team together. But I also think this is one of those situations where Brady has kind of, I wouldn't say outgrown the league. It's just that he's content and happy with his place in history. Now, of course, whenever you have conflicting stories, you're going to hear a lot of wild rumors. The Las Vegas Raiders have been linked to Brady. As many of you might know, they almost signed Tom Brady 2 years ago before he took the deal with Tampa. And they are attempting to make it a little more attractive to him and a little more comfortable to consider playing for them, you know, being linked to Dave Ziegler and Josh McDaniels, both guys from the New England Patriots organization. But after reading an article from Fox Business late last night, I believe that this is just a formality. I don't necessarily think that Tom Brady wanted this to get out the way it did, being that it's championship weekend. There's still football going on. I don't see him as the type of dude that wanted to take away attention from the games. But the one thing that is true is that he has not officially announced his retirement. But then again, Big Ben waited until 2 days ago to actually announce his. I still think not too much to see here. I think Brady's retiring, but I'd like to go into some of his highs and lows of his career, mainly highs. And, you know, just the overall legacy of more than likely the greatest quarterback and undeniably the greatest winner in pretty much any and all eras at the quarterback position. Got some numbers for you, so just bear with me. And these numbers are truly incredible. In addition to throwing for over 5,300 yards and 43 touchdowns, arguably this year's MVP. And I'll be honest, if he does retire, I do think that influences the sports writers slightly in his favor, which, to be honest, I'm fine with. But this is just remarkable stuff. 84,520 career passing yards and 624 touchdowns. Brady's rookie year was in 2000. He originally was drafted in the 6th round by the New England Patriots to back up, at the time, perennial Pro Bowl quarterback Drew Bledsoe, who had taken that organization to a Super Bowl back in '96 that they lost to Green Bay. Brady saw the field for all of a few passes in the 2000 season in some mop-up duty for Bledsoe. Going into a season that ended up changing the fate of not just the New England Patriots, but also the NFL, a game in New England, week 2 of the 2001 season, the New York Jets played the New England Patriots in Gillette Stadium. Actually, that was still the old Foxborough. Mo Lewis injured Drew Bledsoe. Very scary injury where Drew Bledsoe actually had internal bleeding. And essentially, It changed the course of history, similarly to how when the Giants injured Joe Montana, and that changed the course of NFL history. Brady got his opportunity. People saw that there was something there. Jets ultimately won the game. Brady's first career win would have to wait another week when they ended up playing Peyton Manning and the Indianapolis Colts week 3 of that season. And Brady got his first career win, and that was the first of many great battles with Peyton Manning. Another obvious first ballot Hall of Famer. Brady will be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Manning's already in. To kind of put into weight what this man accomplished is really tough because, first of all, it's incredibly tough to have a dynasty. And this man technically had 2 of them with the same organization because his career spanned the 20 years in New England, 19 of them starting. His first 4 years, he won 3 Super Bowls. He then went the better part of a decade without winning one. 2 losses to the New York Giants, but then defeating the Seattle Seahawks, the Atlanta Falcons in the greatest comeback in NFL history, and also defeating the Los Angeles Rams. His final play in New England, not one that is exactly storybook or memorable. He threw a season-ending interception to Logan Ryan, one of his former teammates who at the time played for the Tennessee Titans. You fast forward to Tampa. While a lot of people, I don't necessarily think, had them winning the bowl last year, they were still a fun team to watch. They didn't win their division. They got hot and pulled off something incredibly difficult by winning 3 road games en route to a Super Bowl victory in their home stadium over the Kansas City Chiefs. And when I think about what the 49ers are trying to accomplish today, or what the New York Giants did back in 2007, winning that many games on the road as a wild card to win the whole thing is very rare and something that just doesn't happen often. I think one of the things that, if Tom Brady does indeed retire, that people should remember is that he was a long shot through and through. When you get drafted in the 6th round like he did, not only did the entire league overlook you, but the team who he ended up winning 6 championships with, the New England Patriots, also passed up on him 6 times. I think he's the true Cinderella story that maximized every bit of an opportunity. He was the face of the NFL right after Brett Favre. And as anyone who watches the NFL knows that now, the face of the NFL is kind of veering towards Pat Mahomes, and it's well-deserved. But just the consummate winner, the consummate professional. Not many failures in his career when you consider all the highs. I would have to say that the one Super Bowl, the one loss that he would probably want reversed would have to be Super Bowl 42 against the New York Giants. Coming up 1 game short, 1 drive short of a perfect season. They did go undefeated in the regular season, which is a record of consecutive wins, because when Miami did it in 72, it was a shorter schedule. But just the consummate winner. A lot of his Super Bowls were very close, but when you can come out on top that many times in those kind of close games, I think it just speaks a lot about who you are as a player and who you are as a leader. And when you look around the NFL and look at the many, many teammates he had, there's a lot of respect, and he won some championships with, I think, what a lot of people would consider lackluster receiving corps. I would probably have to say that his best offensive weapons were probably the 2007 Super Bowl 42 season, and more recently with Tampa Bay. I mean, obviously, he helped spawn the careers of guys like Rob Gronkowski, who was arguably the greatest tight end in NFL history. Some might say Tony Gonzalez, but Gronkowski's phenomenal. He followed him to Tampa after taking a year off. And also Julian Edelman. In the Patriots offense, they were able to replace Welker with Edelman. Edelman, another guy who, you're talking about a guy who was a college quarterback at Kent State and just a true overachiever. One of Tom Brady's closest friends and greatest teammates. When Brady first came in, there were a lot of veterans on that team. Some holdovers even from the Parcells era that led into the Belichick era. Gradually took over the locker room. That was Teddy Bruschi's team. That was Lawyer Malloy's team. And as a fan, no, I'm not a Boston guy or a New England fan by any means. As a fan, though, I will say that I'm thankful that my team got the better of him, because when you consider just how incredible this guy was and how much he won, there's only maybe one or two teams that could kind of say that they've had any kind of real success against Tom Brady for any extended period of time. And, my team, like I said, did win 3 consecutive against him, 2 of those being Super Bowls. Baltimore Ravens had some success. They also lost to him in some big games, but they are one of the few that could say they had some success. And our hated rivals, the Philadelphia Eagles, were able to split with him in a Super Bowl. But when you just look at the utter domination that he did, I think it warrants the question if not only is he the greatest quarterback of all time, you can make the argument that he might be the greatest professional athlete of all time. Now that's tough. You have Muhammad Ali, you have Michael Jordan, you have Wayne Gretzky, you have Barry Bonds, Babe Ruth. You have a lot of guys that you could throw into that conversation, but just the fact that he's even in the conversation speaks volumes about the kind of career he had. And as someone who didn't always necessarily like him, because, New England was marred with some scandal, one thing I'll never deny is the fact that the guy was great. Guy was truly great. And one of those people that truly could make his team better and make the people around him better. That's an intangible that not everyone has. And whether you rooted for him or rooted against him, I feel that he's going to be missed, because anybody that brings that level of competitiveness to the organization that he plays for, or organizations in this case, is a treasure for the NFL. And he's definitely going to be missed. I'm going to laugh a lot if I'm wasting my time going in on his legacy and he continues to play. But I do believe that even though there have been conflicting stories, this is it for Tom Brady. A huge congratulations on a phenomenal career. And he's going to be missed. He was a fun guy to watch. Moving along to somebody that Tom Brady's kind of familiar with. The New York Giants have themselves a new head coach. After a very tedious hiring process, after getting GM Joe Schoen from the Buffalo Bills, the Giants got their man in Brian DeBall. There's some controversy, like whenever you get a first-time head coach. This is, the third consecutive time the Giants are going with a first-time head coach. I do think the vibe around the team is a little different, given the fact that they're not doing the typical Giant thing, which is hiring a guy that either was already in the organization or had ties from a previous Giants regime. Dave Gettleman would speak to that. Even Tom Coughlin, while that worked out, he had ties from years previous. The Giants have had a habit of doing that, and it seems like they're trying to go away from some of their traditional thinking to try to change the trajectory of the team. As far as Brian DeBall goes, his name was a little more star-driven when he and Josh Allen started working together. I try to look at things from both sides. From the hypercritical standpoint, he wasn't necessarily able to get the most out of Matt Castle or, say, Matt Moore or Derek Anderson. And while those are true facts, I also think that it has to be taken into consideration that nobody got those guys to perform at a high level. But when you see the growth that Josh Allen made in year 3, then year 4 versus his first 2 years in Buffalo, Brian DeBall was a massive player in his development. And for a Giants team that is trying to figure out if they're going to move forward with Daniel Jones for the long-term future, I do think this is an excellent hire. And it appears that the New York Giants are going to possibly grab Ken Dorsey as well and continue to just build that coaching staff with familiarity with guys that were together. I know a lot of Giant fans, excuse me, were a little upset that the team did not hire recently fired former head coach of the Miami Dolphins, Brian Flores. I will say this. I was rather excited to see if they did go the route of Brian Flores. Flores would have been the first African-American head coach in New York Giants history. But having said that, that's not the lone reason why I wanted him. I do believe that he was very qualified for the job. But I think in a business like the NFL, more times than not, it's about familiarity. It's about working relationships and guys that you know. And in this case, I think the fact that the Giants won upstairs, grabbing from Buffalo, I feel that you're going to see that translated into the coaching staff. And it's just more of a familiarity thing, not so much that Flores wasn't qualified or wasn't wanted. I think it was a very tedious process. And when Miami started becoming linked to DeBall, I think the Giants stepped up and made sure they got their man. As far as Brian Flores goes, I know in a lot of Giants pages, which I'm active in, or just friends that I speak to regularly about our team, I know a lot of fans were clamoring for possibly making a trade for Deshaun Watson. Watson, who publicly stated that he wanted to play for Brian Flores, sparked for the better part of a year a potential rumor trade to Miami for Tua and other players. Being that Deshaun Watson is still a member of the Houston Texans, and being that they were very interested in working with one another, he and Flores, I think things might change a little bit here. And you might actually see Brian Flores get the Houston Texans job and Deshaun Watson actually stays put. Texans were rather competitive this year, even though they didn't have a lot of wins. And, Deshaun Watson is ironing out his off-the-field troubles if they are handled and he's able to play. I do believe that you could see Flores there, and there's also a connection to New England with Nick Caserio being upstairs. Last thing on why Flores wasn't hired by the Giants, I do believe that because of the Belichick coaching tree and the connection with Joe Judge. Not that it's necessarily his fault, but I think the Giants were a little spooked out about going down the same road with the Belichick coaching tree. While Belichick is arguably the greatest coach of all time, and Flores is well on his way to being a hell of a player, a hell of a coach, I do believe that did spook off the Giants just a little bit. Let's move along to Championship Sunday. I don't think this was the team I expected to be in Kansas City this week, or the team that I expected in the title game. I thought this was going to say something like Bengals traveling to Buffalo. Two different paths to get where they got. Kansas City Chiefs, after having a lackluster first half of the season, looking like a team lost, defense started playing a lot better, but more so than that, the offense just started gelling and clicking. Kansas City Chiefs are no strangers to this kind of game. They are looking to make their third straight Super Bowl. This is their fourth straight AFC title game appearance. Cincinnati Bengals 2 short weeks ago hadn't won a playoff game since 1988. And now they're in a position to potentially go to a Super Bowl. Last time they were in the Super Bowl, they lost a heartbreaker to the great Joe Montana, Tom Brady's idol. As far as this game goes, last week, I'll start with the Bengals. I feel that they were gritty. They were tough. They outlasted the Titans. But I do believe that their offensive line has to be so much better today to keep Joe Burrow upright. He took a beating. And while I don't necessarily think that the Kansas City Chiefs present the same challenges on defense that the Titans did, it's still a worry and it's still a concern. And no matter what happens today or next week, if the Bengals should advance, I don't think the Bengals have the offensive line necessary to win a championship. That will be revealed. This is the kind of game where, in order to win, you've got to do your best to keep the Kansas City offense off the field. I'm not convinced that the Bengals are going to be capable of doing that. I think we're going to see a fun game today with two great quarterbacks. But my final is Kansas City 37, Cincinnati 27. And I'm going to point out a particular matchup or matchups. I believe that Patrick Mahomes is going to take advantage of Eli Apple. Eli Apple made an interception last week, but if we're going to be honest, I feel that he's been incinerated and just getting burned on most one-on-one responsibilities, not just with the Bengals, but since his beginnings in the NFL. That's where the game is going to be decided, though. If the Bengals' offensive line can keep Joe Burrow upright, they have a chance. But given the fact of how many times he's been sacked in his first 2 playoff games this year, I don't like it. I think the crowd noise in Arrowhead is going to be quite challenging, and I think you're going to have some communication issues on offense for the Bengals. Patrick Mahomes has the experience, as does Andy Reid. But either way, the Bengals, great story, great season. But I like the Chiefs today. This game here is going to be exciting. The 49ers are trying to become the third team in my memory to win 3 games against the same opponent in the regular season. The most recent team to do that was the New York Giants against the Philadelphia Eagles in 2000. Those Giants won the NFC. Before that, it also happened with the Tennessee Titans defeating Tom Coughlin's Jacksonville Jaguars 3 times. Very difficult to beat the same team 3 times. It almost never happens. And it's interesting because were it not for a Week 17 loss by the Los Angeles Rams, the 49ers probably don't even get in the playoffs. They've had a hell of a run winning road playoff games at Dallas and that number 1 seed in Green Bay. The Rams just defeated the defending world champion, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and potentially the final game Tom Brady played. We'll find out soon enough about that. But as far as the game goes, I don't necessarily think it should be too high scoring. Both defenses bring a lot to the table. But my overall concern in this game is that it comes down to quarterback play. And even though I'm not the biggest Matthew Stafford supporter, I do feel that he's better than Jimmy Garoppolo. In 2 consecutive weeks, I've seen Jimmy Garoppolo not play well enough to win, although his teams did. He threw an interception in Dallas that almost turned the entire game around. And in Green Bay, his offense scored 6 points. They don't win that game without 2 special teams plays. The Rams are very explosive on offense. They've got a lot going on. You got Cooper Kupp. You got Odell Beckham, who's benefiting off of playing opposite Cooper Kupp. I did mention this on the last show. I do think that Sean McVay has to be a little concerned about Cam Akers putting the ball on the floor in crunch time against Tampa. I'm looking to see a little more of Sony Michel today. Defensively, it's going to be tough for the Niners. You know, you got that defense layered with all pros and potential Hall of Famers with Jalen Ramsey, Aaron Donald, Von Miller, just an overall excellent unit. But from a comfort level, I don't think the 49ers necessarily feel that this is the most hostile of environments, being that they just came out of a snowstorm, so to speak, where the game kind of froze over. And before that, the largest venue in the NFL in Dallas, they're a California team, and they have to have some confidence knowing that they beat this team twice. Ultimately, I just think the Rams are healthier, and I think the Rams have more roster depth. And I believe that's going to bode big for them in this game. Deebo Samuel from the 49ers has been phenomenal, doing anything and everything they ask of him to help them win football games. He's truly coming into his own as the superstar in this league. But while I do think the 49ers are going to play their hearts out, they don't quit, and they're a well-coached team. I think the team with more talent wins today, and I think the Rams finally defeat the 49ers. I'm going to go 27-23, Rams going to the Super Bowl, becoming the second team in NFL history to host a Super Bowl, to play a Super Bowl in their home stadium, the previous time happening last year with Tampa Bay defeating KC. That's what I got. I got the Rams and the Chiefs. A couple of years ago, one of the most high-scoring games in league history. There's a different quarterback in LA now, same one in KC, but got some great games today. Going to be a lot of fun. I'm actually rooting for both underdogs. I would love to see the 49ers and Bengals play in a third Super Bowl, but I don't think either one of those things is happening. I appreciate you guys watching. We got some new stuff coming, a couple of changes that are going to be coming to the show that I will be keeping everyone abreast of, but have a great Sunday, guys, and stay warm. It is cold out here. Take care.